My name is Mike, and I'm the smartest person in the family. Just don't think I'm bragging right now. No, I just am who I am. Besides me, there are my two brothers. I'm the youngest. I'm the only one who's doing well in school. My brothers Chris and Tom dropped out of high school without ever graduating. They decided that it would be good if I worked for my father's company. He was engaged in buying and reselling cars. It was a good business, but I had other plans for my life. However, my family did not share my point of view. Mike, are you sure you want to finish school? Your brothers dropped out of school at your age and are working with me on the sly. You're wasting your time. That's right, Dad, I'm sure. You already have 2 assistants. Boy, don't throw food. Sorry, Mum, it's all Tom. You started it, and you continued. And the boys started throwing food again. My mother sighed and said, Bill, if Mike wants, let him learn. When he gets tired, then you can take him with you. And what if you don't get bored? Isn't he going to go to college? What's the big deal? Is education a bad thing? I would understand if you liked math or at least literature, but you're into the weather. So what? Not the weather, Dad, but meteorology. What difference does it make, son? If you're the weather forecaster. Why are you so narrow-minded? Okay, son, that's enough. We'll talk about something else over dinner. Haha, Mum, is Mike going to predict the weather? At that time, I made some conclusions for myself, that if we do not strengthen the dam more, we will not be able to withstand a large stream of rain. If this happens, then our part of the city will simply be flooded with water. And if I wasn't mistaken, the rain was going to start in 2 days, and I didn't have much time. I was so confused that I ran to my parents and told them what to expect, but they wouldn't even listen. My father said it was my invention, and my mother didn't want to listen. Then I decided to appeal to the locals, to warn them of the danger. Mr. Thomas had lived very close to the dam for many years, and I went to see him. What? What rainstorm? Not happening. I've lived here half a century, and the dam is so secure. We're safe. But I checked the soil. The dam is already loose. No one has updated it. You need to cover it with stones and make a strong mesh. Otherwise, the trouble will not pass. This is nonsense, son. No offence. But there's no reason to panic. My house will definitely not be demolished. I built it on my conscience. Moreover, our mayor only recently spoke about the strength of the dam. The mayor? Has he been here long? He lives very, very far away from town. I appreciate your concern, Mike, but you better go home now and do your homework. And what did you come up with? We have to find a lot of rocks, a lot of them. At first I was happy about the appearance of the press, but they made something comical out of the plot. The local meteorologist said it wouldn't rain, but I didn't believe them. Hey, are you so sure about your predictions? No, it's just that I support you as a friend, but no one believes us. My ancestors also laughed, and that's it. An hour later, a couple of cars arrived. The mayor was there, and the journalists. He once again showed us the strength of the dam, and then it came to us. Said that he thanked us for the initiative, and asked us to not cause panic. Panic? What do you mean, sir? I'm talking about a real-life storm. Why doesn't anyone believe me here? Look at my calculations. But the mayor was smiling at the camera. Then a hired meteorologist approached them who refuted all the conclusions. How can you? Thank you all. The press is free. Son, go home. I was so angry that I didn't know what to do with myself. Harry and I did as much as we could. We covered a small part with stones. Then they covered it with a mesh that I found at home. It was very sunny, and there was no sign of trouble. But there was no strength left. Then we went home, and when I arrived, my family was watching the news. We saw you on TV, your infamous moment of glory. Now you definitely won't be accepted into college after this. You'll be working with us. Dad needs a cleaner at the firm now, just right. It was such heavy downpour, and it never stopped. After 4 hours, as I said, there was so much water that even flooded the basements of some houses. My father was panicked about the cars, even though I had warned him to put them away. The news broadcast an assault warning, and then I heard BAM! Part of the dam broke. It just collapsed. But not from the side that Harry and I were doing. I was just laying stones on the part that had a couple of houses, including Mr. Thomas's house. Mike, what's going on? My father asked in a panic. Something I've been talking about for a couple of days, but no one's been listening to me, Dad. Still, there were some losses. Some houses were particularly damaged due to the dam, and even though the water went quickly away, still I was right. The very next day the press came to my house, and I was given the word I'd been waiting for, but it was too late. Everyone began to resent the mayor's behaviour, and, As it turned out, he was no longer in the city. He had gone somewhere else. Mr. Thomas came running to us the next day and began to cry and thank me. "You saved my house. I owe you everything, son." My parents looked at me like I was a weirdo, and I didn't expect anything else. In my family, I'm the only one with intelligence, so what do you get out of it? The police were looking for the mayor, and the city itself was recovering slowly on its own. Now, everyone was waiting for my forecasts, and I was offered a job at the local station. I'm still thinking, I don't want to get stuck here. At that moment, when no one was listening to me, I already realised that I definitely did not want to live here. I want to move on. By the way, my father gave me the go-ahead to go to college, and he said that if I didn't get a scholarship, I'd pay for it. He apologised, and so did my mother, except for my brothers, who were just silent and in shock. So, what would you do in my place?
What if the whole world becomes different? What if we are really just a project and live according to a pre-prepared scenario? What if we are not the only one in the world? For example, a zombie. These questions I have been asking for the last couple of years. My name is Tyler, and you can call me crazy, but I believe my theory. I believe in movies that have done so much. Humanity does not stand still. We are moving forward, and I am convinced of this every time I watch something on the internet or on TV. For example, do you believe that zombies exist? My friends think I'm weird, but they keep talking to me. Probably because I'm a good person, but I think they listen to my opinion. I've been studying zombies for years. More often, they are described as non-existent non-people. More precisely, this is an infected person who essentially dies, but from it remains the body and the hunting instinct, hunger. They eat all meat, including people. One of their bites can infect anyone, regardless of age and gender. It is very interesting to see zombies in the movie about the War of the Worlds. You probably saw it. We used to think that zombies are semi-stupid creatures, very slow-moving, those who are afraid of light, active only at night, and rarely during the day. However, what if they are as fast and as strong in that movie? What if they are smarter than us and more alive than we imagine? My friend Fred often said that I was too confused and my parents just thought I was a fanatic. If you come to my room, you won't find anything related to cars, planes, missiles like my friends. Everything looked like a kind of bunker. When I read the internet versions of how to protect yourself, I began to equip the room as if tomorrow came the invasion of zombies. I installed 6 locks on the door. All of them were closed and opened with a special key. I also installed a video surveillance camera, specially ordered it from my dad for his birthday, and connected it to the computer. Now I could see everything that was going on outside the door in the corridor, who was walking there. There was even a nighttime camera function. I covered the entire floor with a carpet so that no one could hear my footsteps, and made a special motion sensor on the window. He was yelling a soft siren if someone, or rather a zombie, wanted to climb over my window. It's just in case I'm sleeping at this point. In addition, I had baseball bats hanging on the walls, knives hidden under my bed in typewriters, and a bright flashlight on my bedside table that shone 3 kilometers ahead to blind them. And I always wore a smartwatch on my hand. I typed in the contacts of the ambulance, the police, and mom and dad as emergency calls. Of course, you can't foresee anything, but I tried to be as ready as possible for the invasion. Then I began to think seriously about the antidote. What if I get bitten and I'm still in good health and quickly inject myself with the antidote and don't turn into a zombie? To be honest, my experiments were a failure. First, I couldn't find enough information on the internet because everything was based on science fiction. And second, even if I invented something, I didn't have a reason to test it on myself because I hadn't been bitten by a zombie yet. In my favorite movie, there was a theory that if you remove the part of your body that was bitten by a zombie within a few seconds, you won't get infected. It was quite cruel, and it still needs to be decided. But what was in it? But I wasn't going to think about amputating my limbs just yet. By the way, I also had a bulletproof vest to protect my body and a helmet to protect my head. My mother just smiled at all this, thinking these are my games. I didn't really tell them about my ideas because I didn't want to ask too many questions or go to a psychologist. After all, what's wrong with self-safety, right? But it takes a long time to explain this to adults. Other than that, I was just a normal kid. I met friends. We loved riding bikes in the woods. It's not far from our house, where we played war games or built a fire and fried sausages. No, don't think about it. We didn't do this to burn the forest. We had a special place for this. My father built us a barbecue area, like this. And my father even built a wooden house there, like a hut. where you can lie down and relax. My mother cleaned it up and made it cozy. We threw old blankets on the floor, brought flashlights and a battery-powered nightlight. It was cool. I went to school, studied, sometimes helped my father in the garage, and my mother in the kitchen. I often annoyed my sister. She's older than me and spends hours on the phone talking to her stupid boyfriend. And once again, my friends and I decided to go to our place to fry sausages, collected everything we needed, loaded it on our bikes, and left. But there was a surprise waiting for us. In our place, someone was sleeping. He was lying with his back to us, and we couldn't make out who it was. This man was in dirty clothes. He fell right into our house, gathered blankets in a pile, and slept. He stank terribly, was black, his clothes were torn, his hands were covered with mud and congealed blood. He was terribly exhausted, shabby with a long beard. He was wearing torn shoes, and a bag was lying next to him. My friends were scared, and so was I. Mikey asked if he was still alive, and I said no one knew, but we could check. I picked up a stick from the ground and poked the man with it, but he didn't react. I went closer. The guys were standing on the street. I poked harder, but there was no reaction. I swung even harder, hit him a couple of times on the head, but he didn't get up. I turned to them and said, "I think he's dead," when I felt a movement behind me. I turned around with startled eyes and saw a zombie standing in front of me. The boys screamed, got on their bikes, and went far away. I was left alone with him in a small wooden house. I couldn't even move from the shock, when suddenly he snatched the stick from my hands and attacked me. I almost dodged but fell. He managed to bite my leg. I was wearing shorts. I hit him with my free foot, ran out from my bike, and drove away. My heart was pounding as I drove. Damn, heck, why didn't I bring a knife? Why did he bite me? I thought to myself. I thought this was the end. After some time, I will turn into a zombie and bite my family. What will happen then? Then they will bite the neighbors, and so on in a chain. We will infect the whole city. I had to isolate myself from everyone. I arrived home, ran madly past my parents, ran into the room, closed all the locks on the door. Then my mother came and knocked and asked if everything was all right. I didn't want to tell her anything yet because I was afraid of causing a panic. I just said I had a fight with my friends and I wanted to be alone. She nodded understandingly and said that if I wanted to talk, she would be happy to. Yeah, I'm glad if she knew there was a potential dangerous infected person in the house, she wouldn't say that. I locked the window just in case, pulled out my weapons, a knife and a bat, and sat down in front of the mirror. I kept a small first aid kit. I carefully took off my pants and saw a puncture. There was running blood. I remembered the amputation, picked up the knife, and my hands were sweating with fear. I didn't know what to do, but I couldn't make up my mind. I took cotton wool and alcohol from the first aid kit and began to treat the wound. Suddenly, I felt bad. I thought I was going to pass out. I felt the blood in my veins thicken and turn cold. A cold sweat broke out on my forehead, and my hands shook as if I were sitting in an electric chair. That's how all my work and efforts went down the drain. I wanted to protect myself, so I ended up being one of the first people to get infected. I called Mikey right away, scared the hell out of him. He was younger than all of us, but he was the only one I could trust because he trusted me. I said that this might be my last contact with him. His father works as a police officer. I asked him to come to our house within an hour, and if he sees me suspicious, he knows what to do. Mikey started crying, saying that he didn't want to kill his friend. But I said that otherwise everyone would die, and I didn't want to take that responsibility. Come with your father, I said, and get your weapons. Then I sat down on a chair and quickly wrote a note to my mom and dad saying that I loved them immensely, and I didn't want to put them at risk. I even wrote that I love my sister. It cost me a lot to say goodbye to my family like this. I looked at the wound, and it was still bleeding. I was sure that now it would end, and I would start mutating. After a couple of minutes, I started to feel short of breath. I heard someone drive up to the house, probably Mikey and his dad. They came up to my room and started knocking. "Son, this is Uncle Fred. Please open the door. Mikey said someone hurt you. We'll talk and delete everything. I'll help you," he said in a calm tone. But I couldn't open the door because I might attack him. Who knows what my speed is? I tried to chase them away, but they wouldn't leave. So Uncle Fred asked my mother if he could break down the door. My parents were really excited, and I shouted like a madman for them to leave. Boom! The door was smashed in. I was standing there with the bat in my hand, and Uncle Fred was trying to calm me down, and I was threatening to hit myself if they came near. My eyes were streaming with tears. At this moment, Uncle Fred shot something at me. I looked at my mother and lost consciousness. So I was put to sleep. I woke up in the hospital. My leg was bandaged and head felt heavy, as if from a deep sleep. At first, I didn't understand what was happening, but then I jumped up and began to examine my body. My mother sat next to me and comforted me. She suddenly said that she knew everything. Mikey told her. It turns out that the person who bit me is just a homeless person. He's at the station now. Uncle Fred picked him up, and my panic was unnecessary. I had it all worked out for me. My mother smiled and said that there were no zombies, so that I would calm down and live in peace. After that, she threw all my gadgets out of the room, removed all the locks, and forbade watching horror movies with zombies. This word is even forbidden in the house. Since that day of shame, I've calmed down a little, stopped going crazy and thinking about the dead, but I hid the bat. Didn't throw it away, just in case.